Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gotham Knights, Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, our group is still on the run. I mean, fact of the matter is they're breaking into the store, ended up kind of gathering up some clothes, and ended up tripping the silent alarm. Mainly Turner did, because it's like, hey, he's kind of new to this life of crime. But you can tell, it seems like they're setting up at the very least, Duella and Turner, like what that becomes, like whether that actually turns into a relationship or not. I think it'd be poetic if it did, just because, once again, it's Batman's kid and Joker's kid potentially getting together and probably forming a deep bond and connection. That's going to be a whole interesting thing. It feels like this episode kind of leans into that. But yeah, she's telling him to kind of cut loose a little bit more and not kind of be the stuck-up, boring kid. It's like, right, we're on the run from the cops. Like, kind of lean into the crime element of it. So, but now they chalked up the whole, like, oh yeah, like, everything Duella brought up last episode, which, no, couldn't remember her name last episode. I called her something else. I couldn't remember. I wonder, did I call her Dima or something like that? But it's like, yeah, Duella. Which I almost wonder, is there supposed to be like some pun in her name or something, like, you know, because they reference him in this episode being like, oh, like, God, someone made a reference to Riddler, so he exists in his continuity, being like, oh, Ed, his name is a pun because his name is Edward Nigma, Nigma. So I was wondering if, like, maybe Duella, maybe kind of like a little bit of the crazy and kind of having like kind of maybe like a split personality thing to some extent. Not full blown dissociative. There might be some dissociative personality disorder there to some extent. Once again, being the Joker's kid, it kind of makes sense. But so that's why I was wondering if like her name has like some like pun nature to it, like some characters' names do. But either way, no one really believed her about the Court of Owls. It's like, yeah, but how we know they're real? Until they find out, oh yeah, like that cop that tried to kill us last episode, yeah, he's super dead. Oh, not only him, everyone on his team is too, because all of them were underemployed by the Court of Owls. So that was kind of wild when it's like, oh, call up home dude, because I don't know if she was just a fellow cop in the place or whether that was his partner, but yeah, she calls him up and it's like, oh, we found his severed head on his desk in a box. Call the rest of his team, call to the next person, and then you turn and there's more boxes sitting waiting to get you delivered. I'm like, wow, so the rest of the team's already dead. Makes sense, you gotta clean up any loose ends. Because it also makes me wonder, like, well, because of this continuity and stuff, it's like, obviously this is deep into his... I mean, I didn't even touch on this at all, but like with the lore of this universe, it's like, well, is there a Barbara Gordon? Is Jim still around, or is he gone? Because I think Batwoman kind of implied, like, obviously, like, Jim was going to, maybe he didn't have Barbara in that continuity. Maybe the same things here, because I was like, is there also not like a Harvey Bullock? Because only Harvey around is Dent, so... He's definitely not working with the Court of Owls. I think he is going to try and do the right thing, but, you know, it's that befaded thing of just like, not befaded, but that faded thing of like, hey, we know what your story is. It's just a question of how you get there, and will they actually make him Two-Face in this or not? Would that be interesting? I don't, like, depending on how long the show is able to run, once again, a lot of stuff is up in the air, I'm sure, even at this early point in the series, but yeah, like, if given the opportunity, I doubt it'd be a season 1 thing. They'd immediately like, oh, we'll jump straight to him becoming... It's like, no, you got to build it up more and then have the twist. Kind of like, spoilers, like they did with like the Telltale Batman one, when they kind of led up like before he became like Two-Face. I mean, technically becomes Two-Face at the end of, what was it, episode 2? Because that's basically where he could potentially end up getting his face super jacked up in you know, typical Two-Face fashion. Speaking of the Telltale Batman situation, the moment they're like, oh, Mayor Hill, I was like, oh, Mayor Hill, Mayor Hill, oh man, you're super dead. Oh, you're not even gonna make it by the end of the season. I give you a couple more episodes before the Court of Owls ends up killing you because you prove to be ineffective. Because I'm like, because I know, like, at least in the Telltale game he dies. I think he typically ends up dying. I don't remember if he's in The Batman. I haven't seen it since I originally watched it, so I've only seen it once. I don't remember if he was in it or not. 'Cause I think it was like some higher ranking police. Was it the commissioner or whatever that ended up dying? I don't know. Oh yeah, because I just also referenced like the same episode that like Harvey gets his face burned, and in the Telltale Batman games is also the same episode that Mayor Hill gets super murdered. So, and another interesting continuity thing to learn is that Stephanie's dad isn't Cluemaster yet in this continuity. Once again, we don't know, and maybe he never will become Cluemaster in this, but I feel like it'd be, well, especially because there's no Batman now, so it's like probably a thing of he won't. Because it's like, when they reference her dad, all they said was like, hey, he's that quiz guy, so it must mean and they didn't linger in a conversation like, oh, villainy or whatever, so they must not, either like, one, he was never found out to be Cluemaster, he actually is, and that's just something Bruce never found out about or discovered, or he just never becomes Cluemaster in his continuity type of situation. So, or maybe he does later down the road. I don't know. That's just kind of an interesting thing. They kind of like, I thought that was kind of a neat little detail to drop, that her dad isn't a villain. Because I don't know if he's a super villain, but he might just be a sugar, like, he's probably more villain than super villain. When it comes to the Batman Rogues Gallery. But yeah, it's up to our squad of misfits to pick up where the world's greatest detective left off and trying to figure out what Bruce knew about the Court of Owls. Because now it's like, right, we have no choice but to believe they exist, considering they killed the dirty cops, covering their trail. So now how do we like find any information on them? And Carrie suggested finding Bruce's journals. He journaled everything, but all of those are in the Wayne Tower. So luckily, Turner found a way in for him using Wayne security cards, which will allow them to pass through without being checked. Plus, he knew the password to his dad's elevator that went from the garage straight to the top of Wayne Tower, his office. But it's like, well, now I know why he did that too, because it also helps to immediately, in case you need to stop by the tower, don't anyone see you dressed as Batman, makes it a little easier. But while, Carrie and Turner are doing that, Duella's got her own plans. It's like, oh, I'm going to pocket this watch. I'm going to sell this watch, and I'm going to use it to get a new identity, and we're going to get the hell out of Gotham. But Cullen isn't about that, because for Cullen, it's like, no, I do want to clear my name. Because it's like, well, we are kind of a makeshift team, and I'm not going to screw over Turner and Carrie by bailing on them. But it's like, also, Cullen's like, and it comes from a place of like, oh, I thought that was actually, it makes sense. Cullen did everything. It's like, it's my name. I got to choose. Like, being Cullen allowed him to redefine himself when he transitioned. So I think, it's a situation of, I'm not going to give up this identity I fought through like hell to do. Like, I'm tired of running. I had to run from Dad. Now you're asking me to run from this too. It's like, no, I'm not going to run from what I've built for myself. Like, this is the me I want it to be. And now that I'm finally I'm not going to give that up. I'm not going to give up the name Cullen, considering what it means, the significance behind that. And obviously, Harper wasn't going to leave her brother behind, so. But Duella's like, nah, I'm not going to help anyone, who was there for me. It's like, no one was really there for me. I was kind of always on my own. She feels like she can only rely on herself, so she kind of bailed on a team, and that led her right into the trap, because the guy she's selling the watch to asked around, the Court of Owls reached back and we're looking for her, but she tried to warn the guy. It's like, hey, the moment you don't know who you're dealing with, you fell into their trap, they're going to kill you, because they're dealing with all loose ends. First and foremost, Home Dude attacked Carrie and Turner at the office first and foremost. They did find some interesting journals, and it does seem like this date, I'm jumping all around, I do apologize, but this dates back to stuff with the Waynes. In particular for Bruce, it dates back to his parents' death. That is Alfred and everyone else believes that my parents' death was just some random guy, Joe Chill. It's like, no, someone else was behind that. And so, I thought that's kind of a nice tie-in, and be like, yeah, this all ties back to Bruce's first case, the case that I wonder, was it him who solved it, or just was Joe Chill just caught on his own? We haven't really gotten those details, but it's like, yeah, this is the first case in his life of trying to figure out and find out who killed his parents and why. But what's interesting though is he looked deeper and deeper into it. The Court of Owls, I guess, was always kind of that big enigma in his life because he became obsessed with unraveling this mystery because everywhere he looked he could never find anything about him. But it turns out there's a lot of history between the court and the Waynes because apparently like his great grandfather or whatever was it, Albert Wayne, ended up getting killed apparently by the court, and apparently they've been hunting the Waynes for centuries. I'm like, why? What's that about? Because I brought it up last episode. It's like, well, we know they're part of the founding of the city and stuff, and there's the founding families. And I was like, is that why they're after the Waynes? Like, did the Waynes turn them down? And it's like they were just a family that was, I guess, maybe beyond reproach. We don't know if this is going to be one of those continuities where Bruce's parents weren't the best people. Once again, that seems I don't know if that's a more recent comic thing, but a lot of more recent stories have kind of leaned into that, like the Batman and the Telltale Batman game lean into, yeah, more so Thomas than Martha, but Thomas wasn't the greatest guy. It's like Pennyworth touched on that a little bit, but not in the same capacity as like the Batman and Telltale. Like, it wasn't the same approach. It was kind of like just Thomas had his demons, and eventually, in that continuity, it implies like he would have been that. Because I think even Gotham touched on like Thomas wasn't like the greatest person. It's like I said, it seems like a lot more recent Batman stuff leans into Thomas not being the greatest guy. But yeah. Got the journals, ended up ziplining out of the Wayne Tower, like you would in a typical Bat fashion. I didn't talk about it, but the Bat Cave was found, and everything Batman related was snatched up by the police. So it's like, what do you do about the Batmobile? Do you just like impound that, or what do you do with that? Like, all that other stuff is in evidence. I'm sure that's in like, but do you put that in a typical compound? I wonder if it is, they could always end up breaking into like where the vehicle is and end up stealing it along with some of the other like Bat tools later. But yeah. They end up going to save Duella, who luckily the Wayne tech like cars are, I guess the windshields and stuff are bulletproof or like can't be penetrated because the Talon ended up finding them. I wonder, is that the typical name, having not played the Gotham Knights game, I wonder, is that just a typical name for their, like, is it this particular person's just named straight up Talon, like this is the one, or is like one of many? The fact is that we've only seen the one so far, like this go-to assassin, like you must be like their top person, but I wonder, like, we're going to have like a Gotham Knights thing where like there's all these different goons. Like, obviously it's a video game, so you need to have like your goons that you can like beat up, and so I'm wondering, are there going to be more than one? Is it going to be like, hey, you're having this tough time against this one guy? Yeah, there's actually like a whole squad of him. I mean, whole army of them. We have no idea. Or is he the only lone assassin? That's going to be the interesting thing. So, like, once again, is he a Talon because he's the only one, or is he one of many Talons? That's what I'm so curious about. Well, thought she was safe inside the car regardless of all that, and ended up, leaked gas, sparking the flames with a sword, but luckily the team was there to save her. Kind of a nice 1-2 punch from Carrie and Turner. Obviously, he handles himself pretty well with a sword. I wonder, did Bruce train Carrie, or she just kind of like learn her on her own? I mean, we've learned later on from Turner that, like, yeah, his dad was training him, like, wanted him to learn martial arts, wanted him to learn how to, like, fencing and stuff, and it's like, right, it wasn't just lucky. He believes, like, my dad was setting this all up. He wanted me trained in case anything. I guess, like, eventually Bruce wanted this mantle to go to him. I mean, because I know, like, Dick Grayson has become Batman in the comics, but because I'd never heard that before until like people had referenced like The Brave and the Bold, which is a story that they're adapting for the DCU. The picture of Batman and like that typically gets associated with that. It's like it's actually Dick Grayson in that man under like, so I guess like maybe for that specific comic book run he became Batman or whatever. I'd never known that because I've always known just Bruce, with the exception of Terry. Like, Bruce has been the only Batman I've ever known, so I didn't know. I don't know if it was a long time that Nightwing was like Bruce? Is it just in that particular run, in that particular story, or has Dick taken that mantle at other points in time too? I thought that was kind of interesting, but yeah, I don't think Damian's ever taken the mantle. I think he's always just been Robin and all the time of his character's time of being around. So maybe Turner would be the first of like Bruce's like children. I mean, to I guess second, after Dick, but would be the I mean, Dick was always like a son to him, but it's like Damian is your, son, and Turner was your son. Adopted or not, he's still your son, and so that's just I don't think he ever officially adopted Dick, did he? I don't think he did, but maybe he did, and I think he did, didn't he? So I was like, no, so it would be the same situation. So I mean, maybe that's the parallel they're going for. Like, and Dick eventually maybe got the mantle, at least in one story. Maybe it definitely feels like that's what they were setting Turner up to be. Like, he's supposed to take over his father's mantle. Maybe he was hoping that it was a precaution just in case anything ever happened to him, if the truth ever came out, that maybe the mantle would fall on Turner at one point in time. But because once again, he never wanted that his darkness to be Turner's darkness because their stories are so similar. Once again, we see with other stories how that had changed Dick and how it complicated his and Bruce's relationship, especially, that get showcased in Titans. Either way, God, I went on a massive tangent. They stood their ground decently. Obviously, still got their asses handed to them against the Talon guy. Literally took an explosion, got up afterwards, and I was like, okay, it must be a big reveal who that is under the mask, or maybe it won't really matter. I don't think it's going to end up being someone we know over the course of the show, but you always see a mask situation, you feel like that might end up being a big reveal. There's a whole situation with Stephanie, who ended up telling... Well, I think, once again, between a pilot and the rest of a season getting aired, there could be so much time in between. Didn't that character have, like, the guy that she's talking to, like, he's the douchebag dude that she was making out with last episode, and also the guy that Turner has beef with? I think he had long hair in the last episode or something. Once again, I guess that was just kind of a character choice. They're like, nah, let's keep it short this time or whatever. Either way, he's the only person she confided in about everything that she was doing for Turner. Obviously, the cops ended up finding out like all these different banks were kind of hacked, looking into like Turner's accounts and stuff. Now, knowing it had to be Stephanie, someone close to him who has pretty good computer skills, and Home Dude didn't rat her out like Stephanie was worried he would, because he seemed like he was, because he's like, right, don't do anything illegal for Turner, almost like he's not worth it, which is also kind of interesting for you to say that. It's kind of up to her to decide whether or not. It's like, I'm sure she's known him longer than she's, but it's like, for him, it's like, hey, I might be a douchebag, but I would never ask you to do what Turner did. I would never put you in a situation where I would ask you to, do something for me. It's like, no, I did this of my own volition of I'll take the fall for you. Like, I'm not going to have you screw up your life for someone like Turner, because he automatically thinks like Turner did it. He doesn't believe like Stephanie does. So that's why he was willing to kind of say all that. And obviously, I don't think he ever liked Turner to begin with, so it's all fine for him, so. But obviously, Turner is apologetic that Stephanie did ultimately end up getting roped into all of this. Like I said, there was also the Duella and Turner over it all, which I thought was interesting, where she was... He was like, right, I know that we want to kill each other, but at the very least, we need to stick together and make it so we don't have to make it any easier on the Court of Owls when it comes to, like, quickening our death or whatever. So we're in this together, and I forgot how he went about phrasing it, but basically he's like, you are worth it, like helping out or something, that you are worth something, like don't feel like you don't matter or something like that, when in actuality you do. We all kind of do in this situation, because only people we can rely on is each other. So especially when so much is stacked against you, you're dealing with centuries old organization potentially. The fact of the matter is, the one person Turner thought he could trust, was his Alfred, but she's working with the court. She kind of seems like she's a liaison between the court and kind of some of their dealings. Not unless she's secretly someone from the court, like she's hiding her position from Mayor Hill because he's under the impression like, oh, you're kind of in the same boat as me, but obviously he's more indebted to, like, she seems like she's kind of like in a comfortable position with them, whereas Hill is more of a, oh, I'm in their debt. Apparently they killed his rival in the past when it came to the mayorship. So it's like, yeah, you kind of owe us. Like, they've kind of done a lot for you, so you owe your debt to them. And you're kind of screwing the pooch with this whole situation of, yeah, because he's the one that's covering all the Talon-related stuff of like, yeah, their assassin is not making things easy to cover up. So then there's also the situation from Bruce's his last journal. It turns out the pages were torn out at the end of it, and obviously Stephanie was like, right, if it was worth hiding, why not steal the entire journal? It's like, because, and the moment that happened, I was like, because it had to be Carrie, because couldn't just make the most recent journal disappear. Had to leave enough breadcrumbs there to kind of help figure out things with Bruce. But I wonder, did she know, or did she just happen to read the most recent one? Like, how did she know to go for those pages? Because at first I was like, is there some secret or something? I was almost wondering if that detective in this episode, I was wondering if she was Carrie's mom or not, but that didn't end up coming up or not. So, who her mom is was kind of like, she referenced her mom last episode, but that was about it. But maybe her mom's just like a just regular citizen or something. Maybe it came up. I was about to say, I don't think it came up about what her mom does. But yeah, the pages she tore out were some secret that Bruce had about Turner. So maybe who Turner is important to the overarching thing. Like, once again, he's a character created specifically for the show, and maybe that allows them to kind of play with his history more so if it was someone more established, like a Damien or a Dick Grayson type of situation, or a Jason Todd or a Tim Drake, you know? Maybe his ties are to the Court of Owls. I mean, this probably also has something to do with his parents' death, and maybe Bruce had some involvement. There's something he was keeping from Turner. Not unless Turner's related directly to the Court of Owls. Not it's a situation unless like his parents were part of the court. His bio parents were part of the court. So, that'd be interesting, because that means he'd be kind of torn between two. They are framing him, so maybe they don't know about who he is. If that ended up being the case, it probably won't. But I was about to say, if he was part of the Court of Owls, if it was part of his lineage, it would be an interesting thing, considering you'd be torn between the lineage of you being part of the court and also you being Batman's son. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting development. Once again, if he was part of the court, they wouldn't go through the trouble of framing him unless they didn't know. Like, not unless that's a secret that even Bruce found out and buried or something. I don't know. I wonder what the secret is. I was about to say, not unless Bruce accidentally killed his parents, or his parents died as a byproduct of him doing his Batman thing, and maybe he failed to save them, and maybe that's also why he took Turner in. I mean, that could lead more in that more personal route in that regard. I don't know, I'm just spitballing stuff. Curious what this secret is, and how long can Carrie hide it from him. It might get to the point she has no choice but to tell him whatever it is that she's hiding. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.